It is the 77th anniversary of D-Day, June 6, 1944, and we are getting ready here with two D-Day veterans, Tom Rice and Warren Goss. One landed from the air, one landed from the sea. I don't know who had it worse. All right. And I will, I do see Ortega here. Very good. We have people joining us. All right, let's get things started here. Sean, if you want to let people in, I will start the music. Am I sharing my music?
I can hear it.
There you go.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm stepping on Glenn Flickinger's opening lines. We had just agreed that Glenn was going to open, but you know me, boy, that mic is on and I cannot help myself. So, Glenn, I'm going to throw it right to you.
I'm going to one-up you here because I have a special guest. Besides the special guest you've already mentioned, I'm going to take the screen over here for a second.
All right.
Right. And I have a special guest who is going to...
I'm going to stop sharing so that you can share. There you go.
Got it? Okay. Well, 77 years ago, this is what the world heard. And I'd be interested to hear from our two eyewitness veteran guests today, when they first heard these words, whether they heard them on D-Day or subsequently thereafter. But there's such stirring words with respect to the Normandy invasion. I just think they deserve to be played again.
In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened. He will fight savagely. But this is the year 1944. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940-41. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle, man to man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war, and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking.
I don't know about you, but every time I listen to that, my skin crawls. Right? And once we introduce our guests, I'd love to know when they first heard those words and what they thought.
Yeah, and I'm just going to jump in just quickly just to welcome everybody, because I know we have a lot of people here for the first time. I'm Todd DiPastino. This is the Veterans Breakfast Club. And although it is not breakfast time, we are having a program here on this Sunday evening, a special program for D-Day, the 77th anniversary of D-Day. Glenn Flickinger is our host of Greatest Generation Live, which is our program that focuses on World War II. We have Sean Hall, our program director, and we have Jay Wertz, who very generously, thank you, Jay, volunteered to come aboard tonight and guest host this special program because he is an expert on D-Day and especially the experience on the ground in D-Day. I see Trey is with us. Thank you, Trey, for joining us. I know you will be having comments and making questions. We want you to. I see a Margot with that looks like a hat on that looks relevant. And I also see Frankie Ortega, who I admire, who I've never met, but I admire enormously only because I have been watching what his World War II Airborne Demonstration Group does, the kind of education that they do with actually reenacting what D-Day airborne soldiers performed. And Frankie's going to be I'm going to share some of those videos too, but I'll throw it back to Glenn. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you again, Glenn, for allowing me to interrupt. I promise I'm going to mute myself and stay quiet.
No reason to mute yourself, Todd. We know you well. We're good with this. Anyway, welcome to all. Thank you, Jay, for being on the program. We're going to get you started here in just a little bit. I get excited every June 6, 1944, and I have all my life. I had two uncles on Omaha Beach, so I heard the stories from the time I was a young kid. And it's partly what got me started in World War II history. So I usually go back and read different of the famous classic books about D-Day sometime during the day, especially on a Sunday when, didn't have the normal routine. So I was telling Todd and Sean when we were first talking before we started the event, what was I going to say that would be profound? What is Glenn Flickinger going to say that's different than the past 77 years? And they led me to the obvious conclusion. I wasn't going to say anything profound, at least new. There's been so much said, so many honors given to these men, those who didn't make it through the day, those who did, those who have left us since. And we're so lucky to have Warren Goss and Tom Rice today, those who are still with us, so we can hear their words today. So I am going to read just a few lines from one of my favorite authors' books, and that's Stephen Ambrose, who in 1994 kind of rekindled D-Day interest with his book, D-Day, June 6, 1944. I saw him in person about 4 or 5 years after he wrote this book. I got to talk to him, shake his hand, and I thought I had gone to heaven. So let me read a little bit about this, and I promise you only take 2 minutes, and then we're going to turn it over to Jay. This is in his introduction. It all came down to a bunch of 18 to 28-year-old kids. They were magnificently trained and equipped and supported. Only a few of them had been in combat. Only a few had ever killed or seen a buddy killed. Most had never heard a shot fired in anger. They were citizen soldiers, not professionals. It was an open question in the spring of 1944 as to whether democracy could produce soldiers capable of fighting effectively against the best that Nazi Germany could produce. Hitler was certain the answer was no. I'm going to go on here. When the test came, when freedom had to be fought for or abandoned, they fought. They were the soldiers of democracy. They were the men of D-Day, and to them we owe our freedom. Incredibly stirring words from Stephen Ambrose. I've heard him speak those words with that incredible gravelly voice. And again, it puts goosebumps on the back of my neck. And we're so fortunate to have these two men with us today because they were the men of D-Day. And there's a direct line from the actions they took that day to the freedoms we enjoy today. So without any further introductions on my part, I'm just the MC really for this evening. Let me introduce Jay Wertz. Jay, say hello. Jay.
Thank you, Glenn. Thanks, Todd, and thanks everybody. Very honored to be here on the 77th anniversary. I have two special guests with me. One I've known quite a long while, one I met briefly one time, who have some similarities. They're both from the San Diego area, were raised in the San Diego area. Both were history teachers, art history teachers. Both crossed the English Channel in C-47 transport and both jumped into Normandy, France. But that's where the similarities end. Born in 1921, Tom Rice was a non-combat, rather non-com, in other words, a non-commissioned officer leading a mortar team in the 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles. And Frankie Ortega is my good friend and a current history teacher who teaches World War II history to the LA Unified School District and the teachers in that district, and has also reenacted that jump 2 years ago at Normandy at the 75th anniversary, something I witnessed. And then we also have another special guest, another World War II veteran, as mentioned, and that's Warren Goss, who was in the 531st Special Brigade. That was part of the combat engineering brigade that went in the first wave. So he saw what happened on Utah Beach from the ground level. So we're really going to concentrate on what happened in Utah Beach and the supporting air landing operations by the 2 airborne divisions behind Utah Beach. More than 13,000 men in 822 planes crossing nearly simultaneously across from the English Channel from 9 airports and landing in various places in the Cochitin Peninsula, which is the big peninsula sticking out. The Cherbourg is a city at the end, a major port, and where Utah Beach was established for the purpose of eventually capturing that major port of Cherbourg. But after many revisions to the plan, the Supreme Commander, Dwight Eisenhower, who you heard from before, decided that they needed to do this airborne drop, this masked airborne drop. It was the only way this was going to work. So the 2 divisions, the 82nd concentrated more in the middle part of the peninsula around St. well-known place, which is the St. Mary Glees Church square, and those areas of the Meteray River. That was their objective. Farther south was 101st Division objective around the Dove River, and Carrington was an objective. Both of these divisions of paratroopers, their main thing initially on D-Day was to secure the exits from Utah Beach, because much of this area was flooded by the Germans. So there was just very narrow causeways to get off the beach. All the ground units needed to cross those causeways, and they were looking for the airborne units to secure them. So I'm going to start with Tom, who landed in, as I said, in that area of the 101st Airborne in the southern part of the peninsula, almost the neck. And he was, of course, like a lot of the sticks, it's a plane load of paratroopers called a stick. A lot of the sticks were scattered because of weather, because of some German anti-aircraft fire. They started landing at 2 a.m., but some of the Germans had already gotten wind that of what was happening, and they started putting up flak, of course, and there was weather issues. It was very rainy, foggy, so the sticks were scattered all over the place. And so Tom was kind of scattered in, like many of them, and had to pick up a few of his men in the drop and proceed to an objective, because he knew what his objectives were. So Tom, again, I met you briefly a couple years ago, but I have a great pleasure to listen to you now to tell us all about what happened there. And when you, on June 6th, when you jumped out of that plane and you got to the ground, what would you please tell us your story? What happened next?
Well, we got out of the aircraft with a little difficulty. I jumped number 1 all the time. And number 2 and 3 men, Tony Doss and Frank Ortega, each had toggle switches and electrical switches to drop the 6 parapack bundles underneath the aircraft. Each weighed 300 pounds. So there's 1,800 pounds there to be dropped. And there we had one bundle of 300 pounds in the doorway with Lieutenant Jansen. We had 18 men, and we stood up and hooked up. And before doing that, we had the white light on, which means that we're still going at the speed that we should be. 2 submarines were located in the English Channel. One of them gave us a signal to at 1,500 feet to stay low and watch for the next signal in Gulf of Aqaba, at which point we picked up the signal. I was in section 16 in a group of 45 aircraft. The third one to the right, it took 128 men, 9 aircraft to get us in. As we crossed the signal given by the second submarine, we turned left and contacted the Cottonton Peninsula at Barnesville. And I was standing in the door looking out and having the bundle ready. And when I did, we dropped down to 750 feet from 1,500. The jump altitude was 750. The drainage in that area is from west to east, and all the water was moving toward the English Channel, the Duvet River, and its two tributaries, the Madeleine and the Jordan River, carried some of the water away. So we dropped down to 750, as I remember, and to jump on drop zone B. Evidently, the photography during the war was not too good, and it showed a lot of bull rushes and other obstacles in this area. We weren't absolutely certain that we were going to the right place, but as Section 16 came into the Pathfinder signals, which they had laid down in the wrong place, and we flew up the long leg of the luminous panels to the cross T, and after standing up, hooking up, and checking equipment, Lieutenant Jansen moved to the front of the door with me, and we had the bundle ready. And the green light went on. We pushed the door bundle out, and Doss and Ficarota both released their signals and dropped the 6 parapacks underneath the aircraft a little prematurely. And as we turned to the right, we were looking out, I was looking out, and I saw great fireballs coming up at us. I don't know whether we were being hit by machine gun fire or not, but as we turned off to the right, we were passing close to drop zone D. And as we came into contact with drop zone D, with no Pathfinders there, the green light went on, and the bundles were released. The plane goes up about 50 feet, and that pushed me into more of a crouch. And as I stepped out of the aircraft, my left arm got caught in the lower left-hand corner of the door, and I swung out. I swung back in and hit the side of the aircraft. I swung out again and straightened my arm, and I had a $268 wristwatch I'd purchased in San Diego during furlough after jump school. And it was a 7 jewel one. It was really a beauty one, and I guarded it with everything I could. And there's a shot of it right there. The force of the aircraft and its speed was 176 miles an hour. We can't be jumping at that speed. We'd never have a practice that. We jump at 95 to 105. So as I went out the door, my arm got caught in the lower left-hand corner of the door because of the flight lowering itself into a 500-foot altitude. I did all the gymnastics you could imagine. The rest of the sticks went out under me, and as I hit the second time, I was able to straighten my arm, and I got loose. I ended up on the ground at the middle of the stick. I weighed 276 pounds. My normal weight was 137. And I hit the ground after 2 oscillations that my guess would be 500 feet. And I wasn't hurt. I had a lot of panting on me with all the bric-a-brac, war-dealing bric-a-brac, which was for the most part useless. The life preserver, the Mae West, I took off and threw it away. I threw away the gas mask and got rid of the parachute. And number 2 and 3 men came up. They had the mortar bundle, and we walked toward the Madeleine River and crossed it. and we were on a decomposed granite road, and I heard the clicks of the crickets. Now, as I was trying to get out of my equipment bundle, and after I'd landed, I had a double zipper under the chin, and I opened that up. My cricket fell out, and I didn't realize it. I got the double blade knife open and started sawing my way out, because everything that I got from the shock of the opening of the parachute at that speed that we were traveling just bundled up everything tight around me. So they helped me out, and we got rid of some more equipment. We got the bundle mortar across the river without really difficulty. And I heard the clickets going. We clicked back, and within 5 or 6 minutes, we were closing in on about 7 or 8 of the other fellas. I did not recognize who they were, but I realized that I had some sense of sensibility, because I recognized the talk, the way they speak, the elocution, their stance, and some of the equipment that they had. So they clicked, and we hugged each other, and one of the fellows said he had a hand grenade with the pin pulled. Well, you can't put a pin back in a hand grenade once it's been pulled, so I had him give it to me, put everybody down, and I rolled across the road and dropped it in a road ditch, and rolled back. In 5 seconds, it exploded, and it splattered water all over us for the most part. And we got up and began to break up into groups of 3. And down the road about 50 yards, and off the side of the road about 10 or 15 yards was a French house. And I thought, well, we got more hand grenades than Germans. We might as well see what we can find out in the house. So I took Floyd Martin and myself, went to the front door, and sent the rest of the guys with me around to the back in case there were Germans, and knocked on the door. I told Floyd Martin, don't be an ugly American, just knock gently, and we'll see what happens. He pounded on the door. You could hear it from Carentan to San Miraglise. And finally, a Frenchman came out, and he had a long white nightgown from shoulder to floor. He had a white tousled cap with a puffball on the end of it. He had a candle with a lighted candle in a dish. What does that remind you of? That's your question.
That sounds like something from a Charles Dickens novel.
That's right, Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And I started to laugh, and I found I was going putting too much focus on what was happening at the moment, and I was putting myself in a dangerous spot. So Floyd Martin reminded me by giving me a kick in the shins, and I came back to my sensibility of still being in danger rather than enjoying a retake of Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. So we broke up again, and no Germans, and we started searching the area for bundles, taking wheelbarrows and what other equipment we needed to find the bundles. And we all met, about 50 of us, under Major Allen, and platoon formation in an open field. And our orders were to drop all equipment except ammunition and weapons and K rations. And we moved out toward La Barquette Locks. We got to the crossroad, and I was right next to a Lieutenant Murphy, I believe his name was, from the USS Quincy. And Colonel Johnson was back behind me some distance, coming up with about 50 or 60 men. And when he got up to us, he asked for the firepower from the Quincy via Lieutenant Murphy to be put over behind us and the Germans coming down from N13 from Cherbourg to Rouen. The German 6th Parachute Infantry Regiment were having a party the night of June the 5th. And one battalion was in Perrier, the other was in Cairntown, the other one was toward Utah Beach. And as we were at a crossroad near La Barquette Locks, about 3/8 of a mile, we spotted the Germans, and there was a few canals in between us. The fellows set up a defensive system by turning the machine guns on both ends in toward where they were coming in. We asked them to surrender, and the lieutenant colonel denied any composition of the Colonel Johnson's sentence when he took out 2 GI speaking guys to get the Germans disarmed. On the way back from the walk out to the Germans, he was fired upon, and he didn't get hit, but half an hour later, they assumed the same activity as done before, and went out and told the German colonel to surrender. We don't surrender under these kinds of conditions. We are fighting men. And so, well, he offered him a second opportunity to take all of your wounded men, group them together as best you can, put their bayonets on their rifles, jam the rifle into the ground, and put the helmet on the butt end of the rifle. It will come out, form a truce, we'll pick up your wounded and give them first aid. Well, all of that I did not see, but I knew it was going on because Tony Doss, Frank Ficarota, and a couple of others, we were ordered to go over toward La Barquette Locks, 3/8 of a mile, and outpost that. While this little battle at Penemy and Les Billionaires was probably going to develop. So as I got there, I crossed the locks, and at the end of the lock on the opposite side, there was a house which was a resident of Claude Perrier, P-A-R-E-Y, and he wasn't there, of course. They had already vacated the area, but I told the rest of the guys to go around to the back again and just wait and see what happens. We're not going in the house. We're going to stake out the orchard to the right. And so we did. And so I was at the corner of the orchard up the Mandalane River. The two small tributaries parallel the Dew River. So it was a formidable work ethic to get across all 3 of those to get to the orchard. And next to me, about 10 yards, was Tony Doss, and then beyond Tony Doss was George Zeborowski. And we tied nylon cords to our wrists. I told him to go to sleep if you want, but if you hear any one of us awake and you hear any noise, I assigned him a fire sector and start firing, just start shooting. At about 2 o'clock in the morning, after I had pounded in 6 stakes in the pathway, perpendicular to the 2 rivers, and I strung wire very low to the ground with tin cans on it and pebbles and other things that it couldn't be seen too well in the dark. But the rattling came at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and we just cut loose with fire. We got one German. Now, I don't know whether he was a deserter, a scout, or what was he had his activities that he had in mind. But he laid out there for till morning, really. And George couldn't stand the noise and growling. He came because the gurgling sound of a dying man will stop all conversation. So we went out and used his M2 knife on him, and we hauled him in the next morning and dug a grave site near the apple tree. And I cut a couple of branches off, made a Christian cross, took his jump wings, and I put them in the bottom of my shoe. Never get caught with a German souvenir. I still have it. And the paragraph in the story.
Well, that's great, Tom. And of course, the La Barquette lock, it was a key position to take because the lock was responsible. It was the device by which the Germans could flood more the area to block off the way out of Utah Beach. But you were successful in setting up a position there right on the first day. And also others in the 501st PIR and the 502nd and 506 to some degree were able to get those causeways open from the interior end to allow the 7th Corps to get off the beach, where Warren Goss was in the first wave, working from the other end to get the landing set to have the engineers be able to defeat all of the devices that the Germans might have planted on the beach in order to slow down the Allies in that area. So Warren, why don't you fill us in from the other perspective? You were east of where Tom was, a little northeast, and on the landing beach at Utah. Please tell us about your first few moments getting in to Utah Beach, getting ashore, and as a rifleman with the engineers. What did you do? What did you see? And what happened? If you can unmute yourself, or we can help with that. I think the host or co-host, so we can hear what you have to say.
He's working on it. Let me show you a picture of Warren. This is just taken shortly after, not too long after D-Day. So there he is. Warren Goss hasn't changed a bit. And Rhonda, if you want to unmute Warren, or Mary, or Warren could do it himself.
You know, we're on mute is done.
There we go. There we go.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Todd, what do you want to know?
You know, I'll ask you just, what do you remember about D-Day, June 6, 1944, coming to the beach?
Well, back in England, I remember training with some of the airborne boys on slapping sands. And then in our training there, they gave us some information for the 531st to do their job. If they get down, try to get the help the paratroopers out. I never got there. But that's what they was telling us in England. And anyway, we got on the ships, you know, and that's all. That's an old story, though. And then we went over the side of the ship, down the rope ladders, to get in the Higgins boats. And we get in the Higgins boats, and some of the guys would slip and fall, and they got between the Higgins boat and the ship and wounded there, and they got shipped up back on the boat, and they never did get in there. When we got out, when our boats got loaded, we'd go and just circle around, and they'd all line up. And then when the line was right, we all went in. Now, in England, and they traded us for everything except what happened. We knew we never trained to see a Higgins boat disappear in the water. The shipload of guys gone that fast. And the Germans were shelling us all from almost the beginning until the end. And then we got to the landing, and I don't know if they're on a sand dune or not, but anyway, we was pretty far from the beach. They dropped the ramp. The first guys got into trouble, and I seen what was happening there, so I went over the side. I jumped in the water there, and then it was about up to my chest. And I run in the beach the best I could. You couldn't run in the water with your equipment on. You had the rifle out of the water. And then the less water I had, the better I could go. And I know some of the guys just rode in with the waves. They get a wave and they'd lay there and just keep washing in. And most of them didn't do that, but some did. And then when I got in there to where I could run, they had these obstacles up. And some of these obstacles had mines tied on them, because If we'd have come in at high tide, it would blow up the Higgins boats or the ships or anything that got there. And I was trying to take cover beside one of them. And in England, they told us we'll have a lot of cover. They want to bomb this beach, and they're going to bomb it very, very hard. And you have a lot of craters to crawl in and hide in, but it never happened. They bombed inland. So anyway, I was laying beside this, and I seen one of the guys from our brigade. He was running, and he got, I think he must have got hit with that 50 caliber. And just about took his leg off. He got up 3 times to run. That's how bad he was trained. You don't stop. They told us if your buddy goes down, jump over him and keep going. So our main job was to lay down gunfire, clear the Germans the best we could, so the engineers could clear the beach. And the engineers, I seen them shoot off a couple of those bandoliers. I trained with bandoliers a little bit, not much. But by golly, those bandoliers did a good job on it. Beaches, they just explode everything. Well, I got up to the wall, and we were taught in England, because in England we had a layout of that whole beach. We knew every road, every house, everything was there, and all the bunkers. There was 3 bunkers. One bunker, there was the first one, the second one, and the third one was way down the beach. It was a big, big bunker. So the first one they cleared. The second one, I got pretty much involved in that. And here it was just a radio bunker. And all they did there would radio the German guns how to shoot the ships. Well, we rousted those guys out of there. And we got, that's a bunker there that's way down north. That's the one they told us the third one we had to take. But anyway, back to this bunker we took. And all that bunker did was radio the other bunkers how to shoot the ships and the locations. When we rousted all the Germans out of there, there was about 4 in there, that's all. And the Americans took over and moved all their equipment in there. Now, the Americans were sending messages to the ships on how to shoot the Germans. It was like a trade-off. So when we got them out of there, then I was getting up a little deeper into France. I was off the beach by then. I don't know what time. It was good broad daylight then. And I was traveling up alongside of that swamp they had in there. And I had a little bit in the water and a little bit on the bank, and I just kept going up there. And I could see some of the paratroopers that landed in there, I tell you. And then I got through there and I ran into a chapel, a church of some sort. And it was just all blowed out, the front, the back, and the roof was gone. And I didn't have too much trouble there, but I got in the back of that church and went up through the middle of it. The pews were all blowed out. The pulpit was still standing there, and the Bible was still on that pulpit with all that explosion. And I wiped the dirt off, and that's all. I looked at it a little bit, wondered about it. And then I went on through, and we get into the hedges and the bushes up there. And we get a lot of fighting going on there, trying to clear the Germans out, you know. And I also had one of those crickets. Didn't use it much. And then as far as I got they told us if it's possible to make it to St. Marie at least, you can help them up there. And I never got there. I got to St. Marie de Mont. Now I heard that the 4th Division got up that far. But I was in St. Marie de Mont. And you're talking, and when I was in St. Marie de Mont, I wasn't quite in the heart of town yet. And you know, I saw the second parachute wave come in. It was unbelievable. As far as I could see from right to left was parachutes coming down. I guess in some of those parachutes are supplies. And there was one guy that was awful late coming down. And he was coming down. I was laying in a ditch there. And he was coming down, but before he hit the ground, he was hanging by one hand. He had everything cut loose, ready to run. He had landed right in that cemetery. And I hollered at him, and he came over and he got in the ditch with me. And we laid there and talked to each other for a while. And he decided he has to go find his minis, but I don't know where the hell they're at. He says they're off. He said that airplane pilot, he was like a jump sergeant, I guess. And I think they're the last ones out. Make sure everybody's out of that plane. That pilot, he just got scared so bad. He said he banked that plane around. He rolled clean back to the tail. And he says, I had to crawl out of there with my hands and knees. And when he got out, he lost his whole company. And he was headed back to Holland, see. But I'll never forget that as long as I live. That scared the hell out of me because I thought it was Germans coming. I didn't know. You know, I had no idea. Boy, it's going to be tough here, but they were Americans, thank God for that. Then I got sent back to the beach to get some ammo. And I got back there and seen my boys that were laying there. And you know what amazed me? That first day, they had the girls there. The tents were up, the nurses were there, the guys were in there serving, and the doctors were working on the guys. And I watched them. That the ones that were badly wounded, they had like putty knives, and they'd pack that wound full of maggots, wrap it up, send them on a boat to England. Now, part of the 531st had a group of guys that was supposed to pick up the wounded and the dead, the grave administration or something. And they were getting these guys and carrying them back to the ships so they could go to England. I was supposed to get this ammo, me and one other guy. And they were shelling the ammo dumps. They already had an ammo dump set there. And the guy, it was another guy from the brigade, and his job was to build the ammo, take care of the ammo, you know. And I went in to get, he says, he showed us where to go and how to get there and where it was, but he wouldn't go in because the Germans were shelling. We went in, got what we had to get, came back out. And you know, there was a guy flying one of those P-51s. And he come flying over our group when he went down real low and made a barrel roll and a safety thing, and he went up. And we all thought it was a German. The Army shot at him, the Air Force shot at him, the ground forces shot at him. Everybody was shooting at him. He had so many bullets around that P-51 it looked like a beehive. Then he bailed out. He landed someplace out in the water and they got him back, and he only got hit about once or twice in the legs, he said. But that doggone airplane was coming down, and I was watching it, and I was laying in a hole. And it looked to me like it was going to come right into my pocket. Oh, God, was it straight for me. Then one wing tore off, and it headed over to another direction. And it slammed into the ground, and when that hit the ground, I was so close to it, I bounced clean out of the hole. Nice run scrabble in my hands and knees over there. And I got into another hole with two other guys already, see. And we just laid there until this doggone thing quit exploding. All those, I guess there were 20 calibers in there, 50 maybe. It quit exploding. And my ammunition was laying out there. I knew it was there, but we never took it with us there. So we went back and picked the things up we left. And a guy came with a Jeep. But that time there was a Jeep there. And he said, here, I'll take you back. So he took us back to the St. Rita Mont. And we helped clear the St. Rita Mont. And I know the 4th Division was in there, and some of the air drops were in there. And then I went that night, my first night in dreamland over there, where everybody likes to go to France, where that lovely country was. I slept in a ditch. all night long. and I can remember the frogs jumping on me. I didn't know that, but that's what happened. Then
Frogs?
after that,
Did you say frogs jumped on you?
yeah, I didn't know they had so many frogs over there. I could feel them jumping at night, you know, and I didn't know what was going on.
You
Just a
should,
little
have,
scared.
you should have eaten a couple of
That's a delicacy.
That's a delicate.
Warren, I also remember you saying that when that plane came down and you thought it was going to come right at your foxhole, it ended up, you know, blowing you out of the foxhole when it crashed, that one of the soldiers next to you offered you a cigarette, and that was the first time you ever smoked.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I asked him for a cigarette, and the guy gave me a Camel, and I smoked it. That's when I started smoking. Then I quit smoking later on, though. Before I was in the Army, I smoked all that time, but I had more than enough sense, and I quit after I got out.
Good, which is why you're here today.
And-
Hey, and I want to share with, I think people would be interested that Warren, there's a piece of archival footage of Warren on Utah Beach that first day, and I do want to share it with you. It's really, really brief. I've never been able to find the full. There's Warren in the foreground. That's Warren in the foreground. That's him. That's him, Utah Beach. And I have it playing in a loop so you can see it again. And if you ever meet Warren in person, you can see that that absolutely is still his profile, his facial profile. Warren, you do not remember a cameraman being with you.
I remember one on the boat.
One on the boat, you remember one.
And yeah, and he got on Higgins' boat too, because back at home, they told me when I got home that they went down to the Etna Harris Theater in Etna, and they saw me on a newsreel there. Yeah,
that's it, and that's it. I mean, and that piece of footage you will see in every single documentary about D-Day. Most documentaries about World War II feature that clip, and that is Warren Goss, the man right here. That's pretty amazing.
you know. Anyway, from there, Todd, I got the ammunition back, and then we started headed for Cherbourg, which wasn't too bad. It was skirmishes all the way in and out. And we got to Cherbourg. By the time we got there, it took maybe a month to get there, a couple of weeks, maybe almost a month. And that port was open then, and they were bringing a lot of ships in. And the guy, one of the officers asked me to direct the traffic, and he made an MP out of me. So I was MP, and they had these tanks coming in, and half tracks, and jeeps, and 4 6-wheel trucks, and I didn't know what the heck they were. Each one is supposed to go a different direction to their collecting grounds, I guess. I had that damn corner so messed up that he didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about that. And he came to me and he said, Warren, you go back to the lines. You're better over there. Get that, you know. And then that bunker set back on the peninsula was overlooking that bunker there could shoot clean to England and all the way up to the English beach, Normandy Beach, Utah Beach, all the beaches. He had that covered. And that was one of the bunkers we was told in England we had to take. But for some reason, the officials decided to bypass it, which I think was a very good idea after we got to thinking about it. Now we're in Cherbourg, and the guy says, well, we got to get a crew to go back and take that bunker, because the Germans were still up in there. That was a month later almost. Nobody wanted to do it because they knew it was going to be a hard job. I don't know who did it. I didn't get it. But if I was asked to do it, I would have done it. The guys that went up there, and I found out later, it was easy. It was just a piece of crap. Easy done. He says, those boys up there were so hungry, short of ammunition, short of food, because the Americans had them surrounded and they couldn't get it in by water. And the only thing they had to do was take out 2 or 3 machine gun nests that they had planted into the hillside there. And they said it was a piece of cake. You know, that was a good thing that happened there. And from that time, I went back to the beach. I did have a little bit to do with St. Lo, though. They sent us up there. I don't know what kind of outfit I was in, honest to God. Everybody was in trouble, they'd call the brigade. That's what they did. I was in so many different outfits, it was unbelievable. And then I didn't have much to do. The most thing I can remember about St. Lo was the airplanes flying in all those 20 caliber machine guns dropping on my head. It was just coming down. So, and then I went back to the beach, and we got back there, Todd, and they broke up the Special Brigade. And the Special Brigade broke up. The 531st Brigade, I don't know what they all did. And then they sent me up to a repo depot camp in France, someplace. I forget where it was, but I know it was getting cold. And I got up there with all these recruits from America was coming in. And I got hooked up with Tony Flossie was his name. What a guy, I don't know. I met him there. I don't know about him, but he just stuck to me like glue. So I was talking to him, and I told him the things I happened in Normandy. You know, we talked about that a little bit. Anyway, we sleep in these pyramidal tents, 12 guys to a tent. Here comes some guy, 4 o'clock in the morning. Tony would read all the bulletin boards, you know, and say, hey, Goss, your name's on there for KPs. You got to go KP in the morning. I said, I ain't going. He said, you got to go. You got orders to go. I said, I ain't going. So anyway, here comes a guy at 4 o'clock in the morning. He comes in the tent. He said, is Goss in here? He ain't in here. I said, he's in that other tent. He'd go to the other tent. He couldn't find it. He'd go back to this tent. He couldn't find it. You know, I never did get on KP. Then I went in. Then Tony says to me, he says, you can't go into breakfast. He says, you're sure as hell going to get caught. I says, look around here. Who's different? I said, everybody looks the same. So I went in and we ate good breakfast. Then a truck came, put us in a truck. I don't know. There was a couple trucks came, and then all these trucks went different ways. And they sent me up. We rode at night someplace, you know. And as we rode along, we could hear the cannons roar. You could hear the shells going off way up in the distance, you know. And the guys were getting nervous. I said, as long as you can hear them, you don't have to worry. And we got up there in a house, and I guess there was a couple dozen of us there. And here comes a guy in. It was dark, and we had bottles with candles stuck in them, burning. You know, we just sitting around that house. And he wanted, I don't know, 4 or 5 guys for his platoon. Bennett, Sergeant Bennett. And his first question he asked, has anybody here seen combat? And nobody raised their hand. And Tony said he saw combat. He was in Normandy. Bennett says, I'll take him. Tony says, I'm going with Goss. He came with me.
That is, I'm going to interrupt you just for a moment, Warren, just because I want people to realize that both Tom Rice and Warren Goss landed on D-Day, but that they you know, they've been talking for almost an hour now about their experiences on D-Day, and you can't believe they survived it. This was only the beginning for them. I mean, they both fought to the end of the war. You know, they had another year to go. It's mind-boggling to think what you endured, and that you're both here with us and able to tell the story. I know, Warren, I'm going to interrupt you just because I know Tom has to be leaving. And Jay, I know that you have a few more questions for Tom, and then we can come back to Warren.
Good.
Yeah, Tom, of course, Warren continued up to the objective of Cherbourg along with the 4th Infantry Division, and they were reinforced by some other divisions. But yeah. Tom, shortly after their objectives were met, and he'll tell you about this, they were sent back to England because they were already thinking ahead for the next jump of the 101st Airborne Division, which Tom participated in. Tom, why don't you tell us a little bit about leaving Normandy, going back and preparing for Operation Market Garden?
Market Garden.
Yeah, we're talking about Market Garden now. We fought in Normandy area for 37 days. 4 of them in the latter part of the month was the taking of Carenton. The Germans were tough buddies in that area, and they refused to go. So we rounded them up, shot them up, and policed them up, and sent them on their way. And that's the last we saw them. And we departed for England. We had to walk some distance to get to the Utah beach, because I was on Hill 121. And where the Germans were shelling us, we had our Father Samson with us, the Catholic priest, and a first aid man. He had a Jeep with a parachute covering most of it, and he was using that as an altar. We got shelled rather heavily. About 39 shells came in. Many of them were duds, and he told us to go back to your company and get reorganized. And we said no, we just dug deeper. And after the mass was over, we did return to our camp. And then from there, we walked to the beach and went to England. And we had 17 paper operations put in front of us. We went to the airport every time, got our equipment, and I knew we weren't going to go because they didn't give us ammunition. On the 18th operation that was put before us was Market Garden. They gave us ammunition, and it was on a Sunday, as I recall, and we took off at about 1:30 in the afternoon, and we were flying about an hour and 15 minutes, and we dropped near Wegel. Colonel Kennard was in one of the lead planes. He missed the drop zone A, and tangent to drop zone A was drop zone A1. He caught some of the objectives from the ground at a lower altitude, and we jumped there. The jump altitude was 1250, and I let out the group again, and evidently I got caught in a thermal and started going up instead of coming down, so there was nothing I could do to sweat it out. And as I got about 500 feet, I saw a good place to land. And I thought it was going to come through the kitchen roof and land in the kitchen and surprise the people, but I was able to maneuver that parachute around and avoided that. But I landed in a rectangular portion of their garden that was a cabbage patch. And I made a standing landing, and my Thompson submachine gun muzzle got jammed into the ground, and it was useless because it was all plugged up. So we, for the most part, hunted down each other, and we found the bundle. We took off running in a formation toward Wegel. We were 10 kilometers there. And as we approached that Driel, a clergyman came out and asked us a lot of questions, and the citizens from the Driel area and toward Wegel were standing out on the roadside giving us hard cider and gingerbread in 1 by 1 by 18-inch long slices. So we had a feast going that way. My number 18 man, Harry Ward, got his parachute caught on the edge of a drawbridge that was up, and Harry was hanging over an empty moat. He was captured, and we didn't see him for quite some time. But we pulled off a classic maneuver after getting to Weigel at St. Hergenbosch was a group of parachute training equipment that was there, and they had quite a complement of German jumpers there. They were alerted that what the Americans were in, and parallel to the road that runs from our drop zone to Weigel was the Ahr River, AA. And there was quite a distance between the two. And the Germans were coming down in that area fairly well protected because they could see on the road, and on the other side of them to the right was the Ahr River. So prior to that, after we had landed and found out where we were, a Sergeant McDuff was ordered to take a patrol back up to our drop zone and observe as what was happening in that area. He contacted a Dutchman on a bicycle and sent him about a quarter of a mile ahead, and he noted that there were Germans coming down toward us. We swung around to the left and got in behind them after they let us, after we passed them. And we were a defensive position while companies A and companies B in Weigel were the Broom, and between Ahr River and the Weigel roadway, and they swept up toward us. We captured about 400 Germans in that position and disarmed them. And we didn't know what to do with them. Here we are behind German lines. The pilots came in with the gliders later, and we turned the Germans over to the pilots, and they dealt with them. End of story. End of paragraph.
Okay, that was great. Thank you, Tom, for that. Now,
Jay, I'm sorry. I just want to interrupt for a second, just because we have some questions here in the chat for our guests. Joe Chivers asks, and then Connor, I see you with your hand up. Joe Chivers asks, when did you know, Warren and Tom, that the invasion was a success? I mean, was it touch and go for a while, or did it take days or hours? When did you know, okay, it worked, the invasion is a success?
Is that for me?
For you.
Is that the question for me?
It could be, yeah, Tom, you could answer it, and then Warren, you could answer it also.
We didn't know. We're so far in and behind German lines that there's no need to know. We were surrounded every time we went in from all compass points that existed. So we were fighting in all directions and looking behind us at all times. We played cat and mouse and cops and robbers and disrupted their communication beyond belief. So we set up a blockade and stopped any German attack on the 82nd.
And so that's interesting. So that I assume, Warren, do you agree that when you're in a situation like that, you're not thinking about the big picture as this invasion, you're thinking about the piece of ground that you're on right there at that moment?
Well, I'll tell you, Todd, I never thought we were going to succeed at all when we first went in there, because there was nobody in front of us. Is when I knew that this was a done deal, is when I went back to the beach for ammo, and I saw tanks coming in. I saw all kind of vehicles and all kind of equipment, and I thought to myself, and the tents were up with these girls working in there, and the guy they were shipping the guys. I thought, boy, this is in the bag right now. That's what I thought. I never thought. In fact, when I was dreaming about that, and I had dreams about that for years, and I was running and running and running and running and running, and the Germans were after me. And I'd get in the water, and the water would come up and up and up, and I'd get up there and wake up.
Oh.
I did that for years.
Oh.
Another bad ensued, but when I knew it was over, when I went back for ammo, when I seen what they had there, they did a good job, boy. Those guys, engineers who cleared that beach, I'll tell you, they lost a lot of guys doing it. I don't know how many, but they did a good job.
I want to welcome two students. We have Connor, who's a high school student, Trey, who is, I believe, going into high school next year. Connor just went off camera, but he has a question. I know. Hey, Connor, thank you for joining us. Feel free to ask your question there. Good to see you.
Thanks for the opportunity, guys. But first of all, I wrote Geronimo. That was the 501st Regiment motto. Very few people know that, but my question is, Tom Rice, you may remember me from Best Events Foundation Zoom meeting. I've actually met you before, and you spoke about Father Sampson and all that, which very few people know who Father Sampson is. But I got a question for you and Mr. Goss. Did you have respect for your fellow commanders?
Did you respect your commanders? That's a good question. Tom, do you want to go first? Did you respect your commanders?
Repeat the question direct, would you please?
Did you respect your commanders?
Oh, absolutely. In training, we respected them. Most of our officers in the battalion on up were West Point graduates. The 101st Airborne Division was born from the Wisconsin 6th Infantry Division and had 2 rifle regiments in their composition. They found out that the Germans had 3,000 in their organization. We're short 2,000, and playing ground is not fair and square. So the 501st Parachute Infantry was organized under Colonel Johnson, who was a Naval Academy graduate, and he didn't like, for the most part, the sea, and he loved boxing, and he didn't enjoy jumping too much, but he was able to select athletes and college kids. He had no time to fool around with making zeros into heroes. So he had half of that already done for him because of the expertise of these kids that were coming in. And everything we did was experimental. Every running footstep we put on the ground with our boots was running double time. And we had to catch up with the 506 and the 502. And so we did. So when we went into Normandy and Holland, the playground, for the most part, was equal, 3,000 versus 3,000. And we rounded them up. If they didn't want to go, shot them up and shoot them out, chased them back to their through their cemeteries, jumping over grave sites and tombstones and back to the boundary lines, and bade them never return again.
Warren, how about you? Did you respect your commanders in World War II?
Some of them I did. Some of them I really liked, and some of them I despised. I really did. I know one guy, I used to run patrols. I ran 2 patrols one night. And I no sooner got back, and he says, Warren, we got to do this and this and this. And he wanted to go on another patrol. Captain he was. And I said, I ain't going. And he said, well, you have to go. I said, I'm not going. He said, we could court-martial. We'll throw you in they had a wire cage down there and put you in. This was on the beach. And they put, what do they call it? The doghouse, I think they call it. The wire cage was about this thick, and then you crawl through and get in. There was a tent for you. He wanted me to go on a 3rd patrol. And I said, no, I ain't going no more. And he said, well, I'm going to give you an order to go. I said, okay, I'll go if you go with me. And he wouldn't go with me. And he said, I could court-martial you for this. I said, that's okay, court-martial me. So I wouldn't go. But Todd, I went on patrols, by God, I'd stay behind the lines at least 2 or 3 days. I'd get German people out of their houses. I'd have the women spilling their damn potatoes all over the floor. And I just wouldn't do it. And anyway, some of them, I really had a lot of respect for them.
And some of them you didn't.
When we crossed Rhine River, they had dikes on the other side of this river. And I had a squad over there and recruits. I don't know why they gave me recruits. I always had a damn recruit. and I put a target, we're shooting into this bank, you know, and here comes this officer in a Jeep, and he was right out of the States, never fired a gun in his life, you know. And he started raising Cain because we was wasting ammunition, you know. And I told him, you come with us tomorrow and you'll find out why we're doing this, you know. And I had no respect for him. Some of these officers, they didn't know what they were doing. And a lot of them did know. That you take Lieutenant Shahan, by golly, there was a boy that I would lay down anything for him. He was good.
Trey Berman, good to see you from Annapolis. How are you? Do you have a question?
Can I interrupt you for a moment?
Oh, yes.
There's a one point I wanted to make, and I got wound up in a sidetrack. Our officers, for the most part, were West Point graduates, and they concocted a scheme whereby they put us in front of chaos almost daily. Chaos, I mean real chaos. We had to work our way through chaos to lower it and reduce it to a danger. We had to do the same thing with the danger and reduce it to something of inconvenience. And we had to return to the inconvenient part of our activities and reduce it to something that we could forget and get on with it. And as a result of all of these activities of subjugating our activities, we bundled them into a mass of courageous acts and developed a method of developing courage and put it in the back convoluted areas of our minds where the men seldom go. And as a result of that, when the big thing comes along, we were ready. And we were ready.
Trey.
Yes, hello. I had a question for everybody because this debate,
This is Rhonda's boy.
this debate online has just been going on for ages, and it's one of the fiercest I've seen on the internet. And we've seen tankers' perspectives on this, but we haven't seen infantry perspectives. Was the Sherman a good tank or not? I'm personally on the side of it being a decent tank. I also want to know people's dispositions on what you thought of the Panzers and the German tanks, because that is a very interesting subject that we could get hours into, but I just want to hear the surface level of it.
Okay, that's a good question. Yes, Trey, you might be interested to know that I got cussed out by somebody because I slighted the Sherman tank a couple months ago on one of our programs, and man, did I hear about it. So
that happens a lot.
I do want to ask Warren Goss, Tom Rice, or anybody else who was there, how did the Sherman tank perform?
Well, I was never in a tank outfit. And when I heard the tanks coming, that's when the artillery would start. So I didn't like it when it was coming. You know, but I did like it when it was peaceful and I could steal their rations. Because they had a telephone on there, and I thought the Sherman tank was good. You know, it was faster than their Panther tank, that big Panther tank they had. But the Panther had better armor on it. I do know that. And the Germans had some better guns than we had too. A lot better guns. And but as far as tank goes, I don't know anything about it except rations and they had wired to it, but I take the wire cutters and I had to get on the telephone and thank you guys for that turtle shell.
Well, that was very considerate of you, Warren, to thank them as you stole their rations. Tom Rice, what did you think of the Sherman tank?
We had little contact with the Sherman tanks except Hell on Wheels Division number 2. We were spread in our jump in Normandy over 125 square miles. So that is a problem that developed because we had to find our bundles and to find our own soldiers and group together and then hide out during the day and play cat and mouse during the night. So we didn't have much contact except with the 2nd Armored Division.
Hey, Todd. Todd.
Yes, yes.
You know, I did appreciate those tanks, but we'd call for tank support. They'd come up front and we'd have them blast out the hillside with a machine gun nest in it, or else a house. They were good at that. You know, what they could destroy really quick and fast. They did a good job there, I think. But they would sure they'd sure draw artillery fire.
Oh, I see Rick Weber. Rick, you're another 101st Airborne veteran. How are you? You have a question. Yep, you can unmute yourself there.
I'm great. I have one statement and I have a question for First Sergeant Rice. My statement is, and now I'll be seeing these two gentlemen speak with piss and vinegar still at their ages. You can see why Tom Brokaw called them the greatest generation. So I salute them. Tom, Sergeant Rice, First Sergeant Rice.
Yes.
I have a question for you, sir.
Hey, shoot.
No, I don't shoot anymore. I did that.
Okay.
Don't shoot back. How many combat jumps and did you jump in Germany?
No, we did not jump in Germany. We had 2 combat jumps.
Okay. All right.
And, 4 campaigns. We did Overlord and Market Garden.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The 101st did jump into Germany.
I beg your pardon?
I said, correct me if I'm wrong. The 101st did jump into Germany. There was 3 combat jumps.
Not that I know of. We weren't involved in when.
Okay.
No, it was the 17th Airborne Division that jumped into
That's
Germany.
more correct than anything else.
Okay.
The
Hey,
7th
Todd.
Airborne jumped in.
Thank you.
Bridge.
Thank you, Rick.
Todd,
Yes, Warren.
I think the paratroopers jumped in Germany when they crossed the Rhine. Now, I don't know what outfit it was. I have no idea about that. But I think some of them jumped over the cross the Rhine.
And I think Glenn said it was the 17th Airborne.
Correct.
That was the
Okay,
7th
correct.
Airborne jump at Remagen Bridge.
Remagen Bridge.
Yeah.
Charles Suckup has a good question for Tom. The Band of Brothers, that HBO series, Tom, did the episode on the attack of Carrington in the Band of Brothers accurately reflect your experience? Is it a pretty accurate series?
Yes, it was pretty accurate. There was an awful lot of noise. They Hollywoodized a few things for the benefit of all concerned. Too much yelling and screaming and cursing and trying to direct people to go this way or that way when we had arm signals for all of that. And we didn't need to use any voice signals at all. We knew what to do and how to do it because we had so much experience in dealing with ideas and activities on the ground.
Excellent answer. Oh, boys, it's interesting. Jay Wertz, do you have other questions you want to ask him about? I certainly want to share, and maybe we can do this after Tom leaves, about Frankie Ortega's jump in the 75th anniversary. But Tom, you also jumped for the 75th anniversary of D-Day, didn't you?
Absolutely.
And I have a picture of it here. Let me show a picture.
Okay.
Here we go. Here we go. I will share my screen and there it is.
There we are.
He buddy jumped.
Yeah, I had a American flag wrapped up in a reserve in front of me. You can see it there on the picture. And after the parachute opened and my jump mate, Art Schaefer, I had control of things. I released the D-ring and the American flag came out at about 10 feet below that was a 10-pound weight to stabilize it. And when we came in for a landing, the grass was deep, about 12 inches high on the drop zone. And obviously the weight is going to touch first, and it caught on some grass, and all the ropes and equipment that we carried tangled up, and Art Schaefer was thrown up and
No
over,
helmets.
almost on top of me.
Why no helmets?
Everybody was gasping their
Ask
breath.
why no helmets.
I was out of it, but I got up and there was no problem.
Oh man. Hey, Mary Goss, I don't think you'd let Warren do this if Warren wanted to do this.
I don't think I could stop him.
I've jumped every opportunity I had, so I got about 63 jumps in now.
63 jumps. Oh my gosh. Henry Shepke, do you have a question? Henry from Madison, Wisconsin. Good to see you, Henry.
Good to see you. I was wondering what is Warren and or Tom's opinions of like portrayals and like all movies about like D-Day? Like, are they accurate in general or not?
Yeah, yeah, good question. What about other movies like The Longest Day and other movies?
Give me that question again.
What do you think about movies and other portrayals of D-Day?
There's a certain amount of Hollywoodism that is introduced that people need to enjoy and understand how it took place, when and where, and what the conditions were. But much is left out. They can't cover it all. For instance,
About the bandoliers they had on backward.
in The Longest Day, one of the paratroopers was caught on a tree and he was wounded severely. Do you remember John Wayne played the part of Colonel Vandervoort, and he had broken his leg on the jump, and he was moved about in a wheelbarrow, and he pointed at the bottom of the tree to the man who was hanging in the tree, cut that man down. Well, the man was wounded severely, and he had fouled himself before they cut him down, or they took him to an aid station. Before they took him to the aid station, they cleaned him up first and then took him in. So that was part of a Hollywood, and nobody knew exactly what had happened there because of that little incident.
Mm. You know, I thought we would bring Frankie Ortega in also because he participated in the 75th anniversary of D-Day. Warren Goss was there for the 75th anniversary, which was in 2019. Tom, you were there. Frankie, you were there with the World War II Airborne Demonstration Team. And would you mind, Frankie, if I shared about a minute video, a highlight video of what you did that day, June 6th, 2019. Here we go.
In Normandy for the 75th anniversary of the D-Day invasion, we have spent 2 years trying to get ready for this operation. It's been a very long haul. Our team has 70 personnel who have come over to do our mission, which is to remember the World War II veterans. Our mission extends beyond that to teach the history of the airborne to the world.
Amazing. Just amazing. And I know, Tom, I know that you have to go to the, there's another event for the Bedford D-Day Memorial that you are off to. We don't want to delay you for that. So if you have to take off, just take off. Thank you so much for joining us, Tom.
Thank you for having me. There's a lot of points that I did not cover that who knows when I'll get back to them.
Well, we would love to have you back. We'd love to have you back. I mean, because your story just continues. You got badly wounded. You were in the battle, badly wounded at Bastogne, right? Correct?
Yes, I was taken out at Bastogne by a sniper. That was my 4th wound.
Wow.
That's a long story in itself.
That is a long story. We have a student, Brian here. He's an 11-year-old student who has a relative who has a Purple Heart, and he wants to know, what is it like to get a Purple Heart? And I would guess, Brian, that it's not a good thing to get a Purple Heart. It's not something that you want, right, Tom?
No, you don't look forward to that, but because of the consequences thereof. It depends on where you were hit and how long it's going to take you to recover. I got hit by a sniper just above the left knee. And because of the kinds of officers we had and their methodology of teaching us to deal with chaos, for instance, I was caught in Driel crossing a barbed wire fence in an attack, and a flare went up over my head and it was dripping molten material. So I just made like a dead apple tree. And that took a lot of guts on my part to do that. And when that thing went out, I dove for the ground and tore up my pants. So those kinds of things did occur from time to time. And in Bastogne, a sniper saw me leading a patrol, and they are after me. They want to hit me between the shoulder blades and the portion of the neck, the obligato. And when you're hit there, you're through. You've got no communication whatsoever. And then a sniper can deal with the rest of the patrol without any trouble at all. But as I had 2 scouts with me, I sent number 1 up the left fork of a road, and he was crawling within a quarter of a mile of the sniper, who was in a 5-story building and looking out at us. He had all the possible vision he wanted for us, could see every one of us, because we were out in the open, good military formation. And I thought my leg was broken, and I thought I had to get up and check it. So I asked George Zeborowski to give me a shot of morphine, because Lieutenant Bennett gave me 18 syringes of morphine to carry just in case something happened. And at this point, we needed it. I needed it. So George Zeborowski gave me a shot of morphine, and I sent him on in. And number 5 man, Charles Welch, was a getaway man. He was way in the back, and he could observe everything possible. The Germans were shooting flare, or rather sniper, was shooting a tracer bullets well above our head. So the idea would be to, okay, everybody up, we can move in closer. They're not going to hit us, but they shoot low. As soon as they shoot high and get us walking, then they shoot low and get us. So I had to determine whether that leg was broken or not. So I got up after I sent George Zeborowski, or rather George Zeborowski, and another fella in, and I said, the patrol is broken up. You go and tell them what happened, and send someone out to get me, and I'll need some help. As I got up and took 1 step, my right arm came across my front of my face, and my musette bag came down, and second shot hit me in the right radius of the right arm. Dropped my machine gun, submachine gun, and my helmet went off, and I dove for the an old haystack that was, for the most part, pretty well rotten. They bounced off of that. Just as I took the second step, a third shot came by, and I was moving and wiggling and going from right to left. and it passed right by my ear. If my head had been in the right position, I wouldn't be here today, because he was right on me now. And I got away with it. I fooled him. And because of the training that we got from our officers, they did us and they saved lives. If you wanted to participate in something like that and store the method of solution in the back convoluted areas of your minds, because it develops courage, and courage is makes you nervous, and cowardice is nervousness.
Man, there are a lot of great lessons tonight. Oh my gosh. Mike Kraus, I just want to say hello. Good to see you. Hey, Mike, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Frankie, can I ask you about, you were part of that jump on the 75th anniversary of D-Day?
Yes.
Are you crazy?
Huh?
Are you crazy?
No, they thought I was. I jumped with 4 ambassadors that had never jumped before. And they were asking me interesting questions, and of course I was kidding them along as the questions came up. But nobody was injured. I almost made a standing landing, but plowed into a turnip field and dug up some spare turnips. And was interviewed immediately after that because of all the activities that had taken place. We jumped from a C-130 traveling at over 200 miles an hour, and boy, did that turn us upside down as we left.
That's it. And that's very different than how you jumped in World War II, right? Yeah.
We jumped off the side door, not off the ramp.
Okay. Okay. And Frankie, I'm looking for Frankie here in the gallery. Oh, I think your camera's gone off, but if you want to rejoin us, Frankie, please do. And okay. Oh, Bob Young has a question. Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, Bob Young, World War II veteran, Navy in the Pacific. How are you doing, Bob? Do you want to unmute yourself, Bob? We can't hear you, Bob. Could you unmute?
There, I got it. I noticed every picture of you, Tom, you was wearing glasses when you were diving. Is that a good thing?
So, Tom, Bob, are you asking, did Tom wear glasses when he jumped?
He did. Every picture I saw, he's got glasses on.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I went in, my vision was 20/30, and I threw my glasses away. They gave me a pair of. I was a mortar sergeant, so I had a pair of binoculars, and I didn't need the glasses. But I threw those glasses away, and they never found out that I wore glasses. I took my civilian clothes from Camp Toccoa, Georgia, a secret little CCC camp, where the 501 was training. And I dumped all of that stuff and put on GI underwear and all sorts of crazy clothing that, for the most part, would fit a midget.
That answers the question.
One of the tricks that the non-coms used to develop a leadership was get all the guys in a barracks, take all their clothing away from them that was issued to them, put them in a pile and mix them up, and to have someone call off the sizes, and you would come up and get what you think did fit. The leader would be the guy that would be take over command of that activity and organize it, and call the fellows forward to pick up equipment.
How interesting. Hey, Brandon, you have a question. You have your hand up. Hello, Brandon. Welcome. I don't think I've seen you on one of our programs before. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm very happy to be here. I got recommended by a vet in my local town because I was trying to set him up with a organization I found on YouTube. And he told me about this, and I've been super excited to hop in here and check this out at some point. I've been keeping up to date and seeing when events and stuff are. So, Tom, I have a question for you. I mean, I have a kind of a list of questions, but I'll try and keep it kind of slim. I'll go with kind of a big one for just to start off with. Market Garden, what was that like? I mean, were you there? From what I understand, I'm just catching in now. I had to rush home from work to get here.
Yeah, and Brandon, I'll interrupt you to say he did explain Market Garden earlier in the program before you came on, and you could watch this in rerun on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. Email me if you have a question. I'll send you the link if you can't find it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, if I missed that part, then I won't have him reiterate. Totally fair.
Okay.
Like I said, I was rushing out of work to get here. My other question is more of a curiosity question: is when you were to go into boot camp, how did they determine like your weapon choices or your unit designation, like riflemen, mortars, heavy weapons? Like, how do they choose that?
Give me that question again. The essence of it.
So when you go into boot camp, you know, some guys leave boot camp, they might head for marksman training or snipers. They might head for mortar crews, or they might have heavy weapons like the BAR. How did each individual soldier or trainee get, how did the choice get made as to
How
which?
did I get into the mortars? That's for the most part the directness of your question.
Yeah, how'd you get into the mortar? Some guys are, yeah.
And use binoculars. And I was an engineering student in my first 2 years of college. So Colonel Johnson wisely put me into a place where I could use some engineering skills. And I had the mortar manual memorized.
Oh, that's really cool. Because I've been discussing this with a friend recently. I'm kind of introducing him to a little bit of this history stuff, and that was an interesting question he had asked me: is how designations were made, and how you ended up with certain weapons, or you know, how one guy would end up with an M1 Garand, or another guy would end up with a BAR, or you know, a Browning submachine gun, or something like that.
The table of organization allowed that the sergeant of the mortar squad would carry a Thompson submachine gun.
Okay.
The rest of them would carry no sidearms, but M1, A1 Garand rifles.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Connor, do you have another question?
Okay, fire.
Go ahead, Connor. Oh, we can't hear you, Connor. At least I can't. Yeah, there's something wrong with the microphone. Maybe something's covering the microphone. Okay, we'll go on. Why don't we come back to you? Frankie Ortega, I keep on trying to I gotta say, Margot here from France, 104 jumps. 104 solo jumps herself. Frankie, you're with us. I keep on trying to. Margot, I want to say hi to you. You're in France, correct? Or en France?
No, actually, I'm not in France. I moved to America and I'm in Montana right now.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm from France, born and bred in Paris.
What made you want to jump out of airplanes and reenact the 101st Airborne Division?
I did not reenact at all for the jumps. I do actually like the high altitude jump, and what Frankie is doing is way more brave in my opinion, because it's low altitude, so it's way more dangerous.
Yes.
I just did a tandem and decided I liked it, so I just kept going.
Kept going, and you're at 104, and without 104 and more on the way, I'm sure, huh?
Whenever I can. I need to get my wings back because 2020 kind of ground us, all of us. So yeah, like, and I've met Tom like almost a year ago on the 3rd of July, actually in Coronado.
Oh, how great.
It's nice seeing you again, sir.
How great. Frankie Ortega, if you want to come back on, I just want you to let people know about what your demonstration team does, because it really is remarkable.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
How long do you, okay, so the World War II Airborne Demonstration Team is based in Oklahoma, and they have an original World War II hangar that they use, and they have all the facilities there for a variety of personnel to engage in air operations. We basically reenact the type of fundraising that they did for bonds back in the 1940s for the war effort. So they do jumps from 1,000 feet of elevation. Aircraft flies at 103 miles an hour from C-47s. So we have 2 of those at the hangar in Oklahoma. We also partner up with various other organizations around the country, including Riverside, which is here on the West Coast. So yeah, that's the website for them. They've really made some dramatic improvements to the facilities with the crew that they have there. Everybody is a volunteer, so we have everything from, like a mess hall to a school for instruction for students, as well as we have a motor pool with various kinds of vehicles. We have, the air crew, the mechanics, the instructors. We have the barracks facility for the students, as well as the ones for the various types of groups, including women. So we have women who are also jumping in the organization. We really started on a more systematic level working with women. I would say probably my year, we had what is now one of them who has several jumps. And so she was one of my class members. The drill instructor was my class member. And so when I was jumping with them, our instructor at the time was a Vietnam Korean War veteran who was a paratrooper. So he was already in his 80s and he was still jumping with us at the time. So it's quite an incredible organization. We had a variety of them for the 75th anniversary. It was a total of, I want to say about 200 jumpers total down over in Duxford Airport, England. And about 60 some of those were us, the ADT group. We represented the 502nd, 101st Airborne group. Is what we went over to represent. We were supposed to be on one aircraft, but we ended up on another aircraft as being the lead aircraft for the cross-channel jump.
And you are an educator, right? You help to teach teachers in the Los Angeles School District.
Yeah, I mean, I basically consider myself a little bit of a freelancer because there's no impetus for me to do that. I kind of came in very late in the game in 2014. I had never worn a single military garb up until that point. I had never been a part of anything military. The last person in my family had been in the military had been publicly hung in a square in the Mexican Revolution 100 years ago. So when I went into this as an educator, I did it to be inspired by the histories of those who came before us. And so I basically went on the deep end, so to speak, of reenacting. Not a person who's a big fan of heights or anything. So when I'm being told that what I do is more courageous, I was just texting her right now and telling her, look, we don't see people like me don't see a distinction. Once that aircraft takes off, it's all scary. So
yeah, whether you hit the ground from 300 feet or 1,000 feet, right? It's bad.
Granted, what we do is what it is, but we do it really as much as, you could say, oh, this is fantastic. It's such an adrenaline. It really doesn't represent that for the vast majority of people who engages in sort of thing. We're in my case, I have always said that I'm primarily an educator. So I became, de facto, basically, I teach teachers how to teach World War II via salary point courses, which are equivalent to college courses for the district. I've been doing that for several years now. A lot of the curriculum I pull from, I was trained by the National World War II Museum out of their first cohort of teachers trained nationwide. I happened to be at the right place at the right time. I've been trained by them for a few years, and we went off to Hawaii as well. And in addition, I've also wrote curriculum for the USS Midway this past summer. And I've been a part of other organizations because of my need to educate others. I've ended up as a board member for my local museum where I do an exhibit of an Army hospital here in LA County, as well as other things. So that's really my main objective in everything that I do.
Wonderful work. Thank you for it. Thank you for that education and keeping the history alive. I'm looking at the clock. It's 8:15. We've been going for an hour and 45 minutes. It just has gone like that. Glenn and Jay, I don't know if you want to jump in and there are things that you still want to cover. I know that we had an agenda and we're maybe 1/8 of the way through it.
No, Todd, I think you've done a wonderful job. It's been fantastic speaking with these two men, and I have nothing more to add. Thank you.
Okay. I promised that I wouldn't talk anymore, and I don't believe me ever when I say something like that. Connor, how's your microphone working? Can we hear you now? Let's see. No, can't hear you. Isn't that something? Connor, email me, please, Todd, TODD, at veteransbreakfastclub.org. And I do want to invite everybody, if they do not get one of our magazines, our Veterans Breakfast Club magazines, would be happy to put one in the mail to you. Julia Parsons, who is with us today. Hello, 100 years old, Julia. Julia is older than you are, Tom. She's a Navy wave from World War II, and she is our cover story. I'd be happy to send you an email, a magazine in the mail. Just send me your address, and you could do that by sending me an email, Todd, TODD, at veteransbreakfastclub.org. Tomorrow night, we have another program at 7 p.m. Eastern, and Jim Roberts, you're going to be there. And Lieutenant Jim Roberts is going to be there. And because Jim has just published a wonderful book that I have read, about his year in Vietnam as a MAT team leader, or MAT team, not leader, lieutenant. And actually your MAT team leader, the mobile advisory team in Vietnam, your MAT team leader will be joining us also. So we're going to have some MAT team veterans from Vietnam joining us, sharing their stories. Carol Popchuck, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a special round of applause for the guests tonight.
Could you hold that up so that people can see it? I'm going to spotlight you so people can see. That's the cricket that you were talking about. Okay, let me hold that up. There we go.
On the D-Day, I got the last cricket that was made by the same people, the same material, with the same kind of machinery. Number 21. It's the last cricket made.
Hang on to it.
And Warren, you had one of these crickets, right? And you said, did you not use it, or did you use it? I think
Only
Warren,
the 101st used the cricket.
He was given a cricket. Warren was given a cricket.
Yeah, I was, but I don't remember him using it.
You don't remember using it.
But
I guess
I used to carry it with my finger, so I knew how to carry it.
Okay. And that was, I would imagine, just.
And I know in training, they said, if you don't get the right answer, throw a grenade.
Oh, man. Woo. Don't get the right answer, throw a grenade. I think that's advice to live by. All right. Hey, thank you for everyone for joining us this evening. What a special way to commemorate the 77th anniversary of D-Day. I see Rick Weber giving us a salute. I hope you'll join us tomorrow night for some Vietnam veterans, including Jim Roberts. And then Wednesday morning, we have an interesting program at 9 a.m. We're having somebody from Japan, and then somebody who inherited a bunch of photographs that his uncle picked off a dead Japanese soldier in Okinawa. And he's interested in returning the photographs to a family in Japan. And a Japanese journalist is helping him do that. And we're going to talk about this whole hunger. There's a great hunger in Japan to bring back some of these photographs, war treasures. And I know I've certainly talked with plenty of families that have some of these war treasures, and they're interested, many of them, in returning them also. So we're going to talk about what that would take and where their efforts have led. The program tomorrow night is 7 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Eastern. So I hope you'll join us. Tom Rice, thank you so much. I hope to see you again. Warren Goss, thank you. Glenn Flickinger, Jay Wertz.
Thank you, Todd.
All right. Hey, good night, everybody. Enjoy the evening.